Well, when someone has been revived using an opioid overdose reversal medication, they come out of it very scared, angry, and confused. And it's a very sudden feeling. It's all of a sudden they wake up and who is this around me? How did I get here? You ruined my high. And they come out of this, it's scary. And it's a devastating feeling.
I've had family members that have had an overdose reversed, and then they're sort of just out of their, you treat them and street them and you move them along, or you don't have the healthcare infrastructure or the bed to help them, so you don't use that as an intervening moment. If we do a better job of creating the protocols in hospital settings for those that have already had a non-fatal overdose, I think we can have the biggest and the quickest impact to make sure that we get them the care that they need and prevent folks from having another overdose.
The most important thing for us to know in the emergency department is that we can help and that we can oftentimes be a first step towards getting them effective treatment and appropriate treatment. Sometimes just being a shoulder or lending an ear to listen to can be enough to help any patient take that first step.
One of the most important things for emergency department doctors to understand is that their concern matters. It might not always feel like it, and when they are engaged in a first conversation with a patient, they may be hesitant to engage in treatment because, as I said, they start to believe that this substance, the alcohol or the drugs, is essential for their survival. And so, thinking about engaging in treatment and having that substance go away can be an incredibly scary thought for them.
When I think back to what it felt like to be struggling with an opioid use disorder, it was terrible. It was a hard existence. It was a very lonely life.
Relating to patients can be one of the hardest things that you do in medicine, whether it's emergency medicine or any field. But the one thing that you have to do is you just have to slow down a little bit, take a little bit of time, and treat every patient like an individual and listen to them.
This is one of the main myths that most people across the public think about addiction. There's this concept that someone isn't going to be ready to engage in treatment until they hit rock bottom. And I think it's an important piece of someone's story when they're in recovery. People will often talk about that moment that turned them around. But from a clinical perspective, I think it's very important for people to understand that there is no real rock bottom. And you can't wait for someone to hit the bottom before engaging them in treatment, because they may not survive the fall.
I know that patients who are struggling with substance use disorders can be difficult patients. I was an incredibly difficult patient. I was that patient who kind of roll your eyes when they were coming in, who is a pain in the neck.
When I'm talking to a patient that is coming in with an overdose or just has a substance use disorder, when I talk to them, I'm listening more than I'm talking. And I ask a lot of open-ended questions, and I just kind of want to figure out what got them a little bit to where they are today, and probe a little bit when it's appropriate and find out whether they're interested in getting into treatment. Just really learn more about them. It takes a little bit extra time, but just by listening a little bit more, asking them, how can I help you through this? What can I do to help you get through this problem that you have? Most of them realize that they have a problem, and most of them don't want to be in this cycle of addiction, and they would love to have a way out. So they're usually pretty receptive to somebody asking a question like that, and listening.
Getting off heroin is the hardest thing I've ever done. And so we don't want to create more barriers for people. We want to break down those barriers and bring people into treatment.
And acknowledge that it's not an easy road and there's no simple answers, and everybody is going to need something a little bit different than the next person. But acknowledge how difficult it can be.
One of the other things that we've sort of encountered is reticence, or the questions about how many times do we reverse an overdose? How many chances does a person get for their life? We don't make those same qualifiers when it comes to how many tourniquets are we going to use after a gunshot wound or after an injury. Sort of how many EpiPens are we going to use on this person with an allergy? These are our patients, they're our family members, our daughters, our sons, our moms, our dads, and there's no sort of number of lives you get. This isn't a video game, this is real life, and we need to make sure that the medicines are available to bring folks back to life and then connect them with treatment.
Talk to them about take-home naloxone and try and educate them on how to use it, the indications for using it, and get that medicine in their hand so that they can leave the emergency department with that if possible. A lot of this takes some work ahead of time, but once you get those processes in place, then you can have a lot of impact with patients.
It's important for the provider to be a source of education so that they can share with the patient what their options are and try to find the one that is the best fit. I think sometimes patients also get pressure from their family about what type of treatment is or isn't acceptable. And I think we need to empower patients to really understand what their options are and to choose the best one for themselves.
And if they want help, it needs to be available right then and there. So that's the window of opportunity that we can't miss. We can't mess up. And so, the emergency department nurses, the doctors are all a critical piece of that team. But that recovery coach would make a world of difference to be part of that team.
Peer support counselor is someone who can connect with that individual and say, I've been there. And that's a type of relationship that draws the patient in and enables them to feel supported and enveloped with not only information but love.
Help them find a place to stay, or they can help them connect with people in mutual aid programs. They can be their recovery coach to say, what do you need? How can I help you? What's your game plan? Let's work on this together.
They can go in and start that discussion, and they have that street cred where the patients that are having active addiction, they can relate to them a little bit better.
So this is making all the difference in the world, is not only getting them engaged in treatment, helping them to get to that first appointment, and finding the resources that they need, is by having a recovery coach, somebody who's been there, and help them through those challenges.